welcome to the lounge. This is your host, Sarah Kalmeta. Today with me, I have Karsen Kitchen. She and I met through the space industry where we have a lot of mutual friends. Karsen is a senior and she is extremely driven, very passionate about the space industry. She's currently studying at the university in North Carolina in Chapel Hill, studying communications and astronomy. She's part of a local club where they're building the university's first rocket, and she's the founder of Orbital, an organization empowering young women to pursue careers in the space industry. Not only that, she has also been to space herself, being one of the youngest astronauts in space and the youngest to cross the Kármán line. I'm really excited to have you in the show with me today, Karsen. Thank you for joining me in the lounge.
Thank you for having me. It's so cozy.
Yeah, absolutely. We've been excited about this for a long time, and it's so great to have you here, especially considering you're in the middle of midterms.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Let's not talk about that.
We can definitely pivot to other conversation. I still remember what that's like, and so thank you for taking some time out to join me here and to have a conversation.
Yeah, of
So,
course.
Carson, I would love to hear from you. Tell me a little bit more about your space journey. What was that like for you? Have you always been interested in space? Was this something that came on a little bit later in life because you came across an opportunity? What was that like for you growing up?
I People ask me this question all the time. I feel like expecting some extravagant answer about some day that like changed my life, and that was the day I decided I needed to go to space. But
Yeah.
honestly, I was just born that way. I was born with a very fervent interest in the space industry and in space in general. I live in North Carolina, so I kind of grew up in a rural part of the state and rural-ish. And there wasn't a lot of light pollution in my neighborhood, so I would go outside and I would look at the night sky like almost every night, and I still do that. And I just felt so connected to it. It
Mhm.
felt so welcoming, and I could just stay out there for hours and hours and hours and just ponder about existence and what's out there and where we belong among all those stars. And it just always really interested me. And I remember I would, whenever my school and I would take field trips, we would go to the bookstore sometimes, and I would always kind of gravitate towards the science section, towards the space section, and I realized one day that I was like, I really like space. I remember learning about astronauts in my science class in like fifth grade or sixth grade, and I decided like kind of right then and there, I was like, that's it. That's what I need to be. That's exactly who I want to be. I'm gonna get there someday. And then obviously we would watch like Bill Nye in class,
Mhm.
and he would talk about space, and I was like, and I actually just met Bill Nye,
That's
and
awesome.
I was like, "Thank you for your service. You have made me into the woman I am today." And he was like, "Thanks." Okay.
I love that. He's like, "Okay, cool."
Yeah. But I always really, had an interest in joining the space industry, but it's been an interesting journey for me because I grew up with the precedent that men, primarily historically, the space industry has been male driven,
Mhm.
and it's always been like a white man in a lab coat, and there weren't a lot of like women role models that I could look to growing up. So I really struggled to see myself succeeding in the space industry for a long time, especially because I wasn't a child genius. I wasn't, the child prodigy that was doing calculus in the fifth grade. And I kind of, naturally struggled with math and science, although it was my favorite subject. So it took a long time to convince myself that I would actually be able to succeed in the space industry. And during that time, I kind of worked on more of the arts and humanities, and I, started getting into communications and, the science of people, if you want to call it that. And I gravitated back towards astronomy when I realized that I really couldn't live without it, that I just couldn't ignore that bell, that ring inside of me that was like, you
Mm.
need to do this. This is where you belong. This is like part of the reason that you're on this beautiful earth. So it's been quite a long journey, and I think if myself 10 years ago were to look at me now, she'd be like, no way. Like, no way.
Yeah, I know that it's incredible, and not many people get to realize that dream so quickly, right?
Mhm.
And so that's another big thing that I think so many people build up their dreams in their
Mhm.
mind, right? And it's
Mhm.
always this someday, one day, and we work really hard and we're driven and we do all the things to get there. But what happens on the other side? I'm really curious to know what that was like for you to recognize, okay, this is something that lights me up.
Mhm.
I'm like you. I used to stare up into the night sky, and I still do when there's no light pollution. And even when there is, I'm
Mhm.
like, where's Orion? I can always find him in the sky.
Yeah.
But then, nobody talks about what happens on the other side of achieving something, whether it's a small
Mhm.
thing or a great thing. There is a vacuum on the other side, and nature abhors a vacuum. So I'm really curious to know, what was your experience leading up to going to space, and
Mhm.
then that journey afterwards once you got back home.
I I it was really an interesting thing to learn that I was going to space. Learning that I don't think you're ever really prepared to learn about something like that. Like, you're never really ready. You're like, yes, I'm ready to, you know, do this. It's just kind of, especially because I learned like 2.5, 3 years before I actually went. And so for a large portion of that time before I went, I literally had to shove it to the back of my mind. And then randomly sometimes I would just remember like, wait, you guys, I'm like going to space. Like, what's happening? But I had to shove it to the back of my mind, and I think that I wasn't able to function really. I wasn't able to go about my daily life if I only thought about how I was going to space
Mm,
because it's kind of this huge achievement that takes you out of your current reality. It's especially as a student, it reminds me of how what my future can look like and how I won't be in school forever, and so I start imagining that and imagining what that can look like, and I lose touch with the present, and that I actually need to graduate and focus on school before I get there. But I think it was a interesting journey also because there was a large portion of me that was kind of nervous.
mm,
um, I had a lot of imposter syndrome. That's something we've talked about before. Uh, that I was like, why am I like me? Like, I sat there and I was like, I don't deserve this. Like, I don't know
mm,
what I could possibly do in my life to deserve this amazing opportunity, to deserve out of all of the other young women in the world to become the youngest woman. And it was also it was really nerve-wracking for me because I knew that after that I would have to represent this large group. And I was like, am I going to be the right person
mm,
to uh like represent them, this entire large group of women? And that was definitely something I struggled with for a long time, and I honestly, I can say that I'm glad I went through that because I think not only did space give me a larger appreciation for just life in general, for the breadth of existence, but it
mhm,
also kind of gave me a better sense of confidence. After I went to space and when I was going through all my training and during this entire experience, I kind of sat there and I realized I do deserve this. I am equipped for this, and I am proud to represent this entire community because I think I am a great person to go to space. I think I am very deserving. I mean, I think that anyone in the world would want to send kind of a normal person, a person of civilization, a person of the community to go and represent the rest of them. So, there was definitely, I think, some hard parts about, going to space and kind of what that means to people, and that's not talked about a lot, and
mhm,
how it's kind of scary. And I knew previously also before I went to space that my perspective was going to change, and I was kind of scared. Not scared. I was really excited, but I was kind of scared about what that would do to me.
yeah.
I A big fear of mine was that I was not going to want to do literally anything. That I was like, nothing matters. I just need to find a way to get back to space, which didn't happen, kind of, but not
Okay.
really.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a very valid fear, right? Because it's almost like once you taste, the
Yeah.
elixir, it's
Mhm.
like nothing else can satisfy.
Yeah,
And so,
exactly.
of course, I'm assuming that if you had the opportunity, like if someone were to knock on your door right now, and be like, "Hey, Carson, we got to go to space. You got to leave." You'd be like, "Oh, sorry, goodbye. Your podcast can wait. I got to go right now." Um, but at the same time, it's not demotivating you from anything else. Is that what I'm
Yeah.
hearing? Okay,
Yes, yes. Mhm.
that's good. What other fears did you have?
Well, I mean, there's the obvious one of like I'm sitting on a metal tin of TNT about to blast me up into the Earth's atmosphere. So that's, maybe not the safest thing. But there were a lot of people that asked me if I was scared to go to space, and I always said no because
Mm.
and that was true. Like I really wasn't, and I don't think I would be if someone were to come in my room and be like, "Let's go to space." I'd be like, "Okay, let's do it." Because
Yeah.
I have wanted to go to space for so long that no matter the risks, like I knew there were redundancies in place to obviously it's a rocket, so they have protocols for stuff like this and they have, safety measures in place to make sure that doesn't happen. But I really just wasn't scared. I I had like the obvious fears of like death, like the human fear of death, but
Yeah.
I wasn't really scared to go to space because it had been something I had wanted to do since I gained consciousness as a human.
Mm.
I knew that if something were to happen to me when I was going to space, that's where I would kind of want something to happen. And that's
Yeah.
what I told my mom because it took a long time to actually convince my mom to let me go to space. My dad was like, "Yes, totally do it. Like, let's do it." And my mom was like, "No,
Yeah.
there is no way I'm sending my youngest and only daughter in a rocket to go to space. Like there's no way." And so I sat down with her and I explained, what this meant to me, and she knows how much I've wanted to go to space for my entire life and that if something were to happen to me, that I would be okay with it happening in space.
Mm.
And no matter the risks, the pros and all the benefits of going to space kind of outweighed all the cons by a large margin. So, other than the fear of, kind of maybe dying, that's just ingrained in everyone's head, I really didn't have that much fear about the safety cautions of it. Um, but I was so excited. I could barely contain myself, and I remember the weeks prior to my launch, I was doing so much self-reflection. I was like reaching out to people that I hadn't talked to in like so many. I reached out to like my ex-boyfriend, and I was like, "Hey, like I'm just thinking about you." Like, and he's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "No, not that way. Like, just hey, like just
Yeah.
want to say I'm grateful that I had you in my life." And he's like, "Okay." Um, but I was doing a lot of self-reflection. I have like so many videos on my phone of me just sitting and talking about, what this earth means to me and kind of how I
Mhm.
look at life so that I could go back after I went to space and kind of see how my perception had changed.
Wow.
And it's been really great to kind of live with this new perspective, to live with this new
Mm.
part of my brain.
I love that. I love that you recorded yourself as well. You know, that it's so powerful to go back and reflect on our old journal entries, but to have that
Mhm.
video recording and to
Mhm.
be able to notice the nuance in your speech, the
Mhm.
cadence, the inflection, the tone, the
Mhm.
tonality, right? Like how you're expressing yourself, and to
Mhm.
be able to see that version of yourself from the past with the current version of you. And so it's a great way to capture and be
Mhm.
able to recognize those shifts because sometimes those shifts we don't comprehend right away. We're not conscious of them right away.
Right.
Um, or we feel like, yeah, I've always felt that way. That's been me, right?
Yeah.
And we adopt that new identity, which washes away the previous one.
Mhm.
And it's not until we can go back and go, oh yeah, like I used to really think X,
Mhm.
or I used to feel really strongly about this person, and now it's just neutral, and that's
Yeah.
cool. That's okay. And so
Yeah.
that's a what a gift to yourself that
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. It's been weird because I after I went to space, I would say for like 2 months after I went to space, I genuinely did notice like a difference in the way I thought about the world. Like, and I'll
Mm,
tell this to everyone I know, like I think that the overview effect is it's not just like a something that happens. It's like changes your actual brain chemistry. Like I want there to be science on this and like actually monitor someone's brain waves when they go to space because I swear to God, when I went to space, there was like an immediate shift in
mm,
everything. And I came back down and I had this, it was like I was reborn. I had this
mm.
newfound vision. I had this newfound outlook on life and I looked at everything differently. And now that I've been living with that for I think it's been God, almost maybe 6 months, I have developed like a new identity. I don't kind of notice, oh, I'm thinking this way instead of this way. It's
Right.
just kind of been ingrained in the way I think now, which is I think about that sometimes and it makes me kind of sad that that's kind of getting far behind me, but I think that it's been great and just I, I just feel like I've been reborn and I feel like that's the
Mhm.
perfect word for it.
I love that, and Frank White would love that too.
Mhm.
The overview effect,
Mhm.
founding father of overview effect, he's the
Mhm.
best, and, he talks about this a lot, and, this some people's experiences going to space are more profound than others, and
Mhm.
some others' perspectives are maybe more subtle,
Right.
right? But that's the other thing is there can be awe and wonder in the subtle, in
Mhm.
that really nuanced difference.
Mhm.
And overarching is this theme of everything is connected, and it changes how you express yourself, how you show up in the world, how you engage with others, and
Mhm.
that's a really powerful medicine. I mean, if we could offer that to more people, right? Some people are really against things like space tourism, but imagine the power of an eclipse.
Mhm.
Right, we see these videos of people and they're sharing their glasses with each other and everyone's gasping and in awe. And in those moments, it's really potent and you can feel it.
Mhm.
And so if we could offer that to more people, we would
Yeah.
stop squabbling over you're a man, I'm a woman, you're this color,
Mhm.
I'm that color, you're this generation, I'm this generation. You work in computers and I work with people. Like, it
Mhm.
wouldn't be about dominating and winning. It would just be like, hey, we're all here to learn from each other and, have
Mhm.
this experience.
I agree. I think one of the first things I told my parents after I came back from space, which is funny because it's something my dad told me after he had gone to space, was that I think that if everyone in the world had that opportunity to go to space, this world would be an incredibly different place. There like there would not be as much turmoil as there is today. Just
Yeah.
because it really being able to look at your planet, being able to actually it's like stepping out of your own body and
Mm.
into something greater. It's like being able to meet your maker, like the first handshake.
Yeah.
Like it's simply just changes you to your core. And I think that this world would be probably a lot kinder to each other. Um, but it's also funny that you mention that everyone who goes to space kind of takes something different and it affects people in different ways. And I've been thinking about this recently because I think that space affects you and space gives you what you need most. And
Mm.
people go to space with different intentions, with different wants and needs and different aspects of, of life and kind of different mental avenues and I came back from space with a newfound sense of confidence and a newfound sense of love for the world. And I think that that is what I needed most because I would consider myself, previous to going to space, I would have considered myself a very anxious person. I
Mm.
was stressed out all the time. And not only because I was just like in school and felt like I had all of this stuff on my shoulders and I had, my entire life in front of me, but I had always been an anxious person. Really struggled with social anxiety when I was younger. Um, and I had been kind of dealing with anxiety for my entire life. And after I went to space, honestly, and this is why I really do think that there needs to be some science behind the overview effect, I would no longer even consider myself an anxious person at all. Like I'm genuinely gonna sit here and say, and me a year ago would gasp at this statement, but I like don't get that anxious anymore. which is so great. Obviously, there are anxious things that happen to me, but I'm able to navigate them in a different
Mhm.
way because of that newfound sense of appreciation for life and this newfound perspective. And I was talking to a couple of astronauts the other day, and we she asked me what the most incredible what I kind of noticed first when I went to space and what I looked down and saw. And this is so interesting because I told her that I saw the Earth and the Earth light, as Dr. Stan Proctor calls it, just completely took me by surprise. I did
Mm.
not expect it to be that bright. And I especially didn't expect the blackness of space to be so black. And then she told me, she was like, yeah, obviously I noticed that, but I noticed the colors of the wisp of the atmosphere and how they were colors I had kind of never seen before. It was like bioluminescent. And
Wow.
I love how everyone that goes to space brings back something different with them. So we're not just disseminating the same information to everybody. It's all these different perspectives that come from, experience, that come from how you were raised, that come from the environment that you live in. And that's affecting the world. And they're all positive things, but I
Yeah.
think I think if we get enough people to have that overview effect, that we'll be on the right way.
Yes, I agree. And, I also want to go back to your point earlier about the nostalgia, right? So
Mhm.
you almost felt a little bit sad about this
Mhm.
difference and this shift,
Mhm.
for the version that you were before to this version that you are now. And that is what I think a lot of people forget to consider when
Mhm.
they're going through a big change or transition of any kind, whether it's I've achieved the goal that I've had my whole life or
Mhm.
this dream that I've had my whole life, so what do I do now? Well, we create new ones, right?
Yeah.
And we redirect that energy into new directions. And sometimes it's the same direction, sometimes it's completely different.
Mhm.
So when you came back and you said you felt this shift already, right? And
Mhm.
I think I also agree with you. We should study the overview effect from as many levels as possible, and
Mhm.
it's not too far off that we will be able to get more people to see that, right,
Mhm.
and to experience those things. What was that like for you to you came back? It's like, well, I still have school, I still have exams, but this
Yeah.
bigger thing is gone now. How did that affect your day to day?
I It really changed, I feel like weekly, honestly. I remember the first week I came back to school, I was so over it. I was like, there is no way. I just came back from space and I have to go take a math test. Like, what is happening in the world? Like, the duality of my life is insane. Um, and it was kind of dual-sided because I was kind of tired of school. I mean, I've been in school for my entire life, so I was like, I'm ready to get out. I'm ready to go disseminate this information and like go out and live my life and make a big impact and make all these strides.
Yeah.
And I also, on the other side of that, I had just had this rebirth, this realization that my life is so precious, that
Mm,
my life is so unique, and just the daring chance of existence, of being able to live, of being able to breathe, of being able to see the beauty and the ups and downs of life, and being able to be a human on this planet with that I'm a sapient and I'm a sentient human. I have emotions that are unexplainable and they're complex. I just felt so lucky and I felt so grateful for that. So while I was really tired of the fact that I had to go back to school after having this incredible experience that was, addicting, it felt like I had just taken a drug. I wanted more and more and more of it. I also had this newfound appreciation that allowed me to be grateful for all aspects of my life, including the chance to educate myself, including the chance to expand my knowledge, to learn everything that I could about this world. And so while I was like, this is so dumb that I'm sitting in a classroom and taking this test right now, I also had the other side of the coin at the same time that was like, how lucky am I to be able to sit in a classroom at a great, prestigious university and be able to learn and take advantage of this opportunity and become a smart person because, not a lot of people women like 100 years ago didn't have that opportunity, so I'm going to take advantage of my life. And I also decided, yes, that I'm going to take advantage of every opportunity I can get. Um, and I would say that maybe the other side, the wow, I'm very grateful to be educated, and education right now sometimes slips away when I have a lot to do. but but mostly it's still there. And it was also really interesting to go back to class because obviously my university found out that I went to space and, posted about it, and people at my school knew about it. And so I would be walking down like campus and I'd be getting like looks, and I'm like, hey, you guys, just
It's
got
still
back from
me.
space. How y'all, how y'all doing? How y'all doing? And then some of my teachers would make like announcements in my classroom, and I'd be like, hey. I was like, oh my gosh.
Was
I
that
still kind of
surprising to you? Or was it just
no,
more
because
of a you weren't maybe expecting that much attention?
I knew that it was going to garner some attention. I definitely knew, but I don't think I was ever prepared for that because I'm talking like a 150-person lecture hall,
Right.
all like turning around and looking at you, and I'm like,
Hi.
hey, hi. Um, but I also, I also am a bartender. So I work at a bar every Saturday night. I go and bartend. And people will come up to me still this day. I get at least one per shift. They're like, "You went to space, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "So what are you doing serving me my drinks?" And I'm like,
I still gotta
"What do you
still
mean?"
gotta make money. I'm
First of all,
still a
still gotta make
human.
money. Second of all, like I'm still a 22-year-old college woman.
Right.
Like I love like life maxing. Like I love being the jack of all trades, like getting as many skills
Life
and as many
maxing. I love it.
as many different aspects of my life that I possibly can. And it is so fun. And it is so great to be able to have conversations with people and they come up to me like, "You went to space." And like they're so interested to know about it. And I get a lot of, mostly it's a lot of women that come up to me and ask me about space and like, "That's so cool. Like I would love to go to space. Like I wish I could study astronomy. I wish I could do what you're doing. I just don't feel like that's I can do that." And that has also shown me something because I thought that the general public had kind of made more strides being inclusive with women and, educating women from a young age from primary, secondary school, kind of trying to close this STEM gap. And the more and more that I talk to people about this, the more I realize that that STEM gap might be opening up actually a little bit more,
Hmm.
and that there are still millions of women out there who are like, "I'm not smart enough to be in the space industry. Like, I don't fit that mold. I don't fit the mold of being a physics major. Like, I just don't." It's
Or
such
a
a
fighter pilot or,
exactly
whatever it is that they think they need to be
whatever it
doing.
is. Yes, because it's just you look on any website, any history book, and it's like men. It's
Right.
men who have like been in the military for 40 plus years who are like going to space, and like it's it's still sad to it's still sad to see that, and that's why I started Orbital, and that's kind of why I also started this club at school to make science and to make astronomy feel kind of less intimidating and more accessible and more easily approachable, just because I had gone through the same thing too. The
Mm.
beginning of college, I had given up like completely on my on any goal I ever had to make into the space industry because I had convinced myself because of what society has told me that I was just never going to be able to make it. I wasn't on the right path, and if I wasn't on that one specific path, then there's no way I could open any doors in the space industry because I didn't think that there were that many doors. That was one. It's not like Monsters Inc. where they're just coming and going and like rotating on this like conveyor belt. I was like, there's one door, and I am not. My trajectory is not to go through that one. But here I am today, breaking the
Yeah.
mold.
I love it. Yes, and it's so true. It really does speak to why we need role models
Mhm.
that look like us. That for us to even be aware that something exists. I was very fortunate that I grew up going to air shows and to the
Mhm.
planetarium with my mom, and it was something we did together. So in my mind, it was like normal to be interested in those things. I still remember my favorite episode of the Magic School Bus was when they
Oh,
went to space.
ooh, yes.
And one we went to Six Flags Great America. I think I must have been like 5 or
Mhm.
6. And this memory is still very it's like my memory because I remember it so clearly. I thought we went to space. Like I thought we went to the moon on this ride and we got off and I was like, I've never been to space before. My mom was like, Sarah, and she's like trying to because we'd gone to the space center so many times, all these things. So, I saw us go through the thing, but it's one of those
Mhm.
5D rides,
Yeah.
and so that opens up a whole nother conversation about like what is reality, right? Because now
Mhm.
we've got VR headsets and these different
Yeah.
experiential things. I went to the Infinite in Houston.
What is
Have you
that?
done that yet?
What is that?
I would be so excited to hear your reference to this experience. So the Infinite is you go in and you get a VR headset and you can walk around. They only allow I think 14 people at a time. And so as you're wearing this VR headset, you're essentially walking through the ISS or around it, and you're touching these like glowing things that then play a short video. And so if you're inside the ISS, you're seeing the different sections and they're explaining to you what they do there. And if you're outside, then you're getting this view from the space station back
Yeah.
down on Earth, and it's like using the footage from, like send footage basically.
Yeah.
And I mean, both Lucy and I got tears in our eyes, and I was like, if this is the closest thing that I've gotten to the overview effect, and we're big space geeks. And so when you put this headset on, there's a big door you have to walk through. It's like lit
Mhm.
up. You feel like you're in a video game.
Yeah.
And then on the other side of the doorway is space. And my
Oh.
brain stopped my body from walking because it was like, you can't take a step, you'll fall.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
I
no.
had to like take my foot and do this to the ground
Mhm.
so that I
Oh,
could
really?
convince myself, like, no,
Yeah.
it's safe to walk through this doorway, even though I knew I had a headset on, right?
Oh, yeah.
It was really bizarre.
That is
But yeah, it's a great experience. And it's one of these things that people can go and experience. It travels around the United States. And so I think it still might be in Houston. It was at the end of last year, but it moves around. And so
oh,
typically near a space center of some kind
ooh,
so that they can get people to experience,
interesting. Yeah.
in greater detail than in an IMAX or in the traditional kind of theaters, what that feels like. And I highly
Mhm.
recommend it to everybody.
Mhm. Wow. I will definitely look that up after because I wanna do that.
Yeah, no, I would love to definitely get your feedback on like the real thing versus that and what
Mhm.
kind of sensations you feel. That would be a really interesting experiment, right?
Yeah.
And like everything in life is an experiment.
Right.
It really is. Um, but yes, it's not every day that you get exposure to, hey, that's a field that I can go to because I see other people that look like me, and so therefore I feel like that's where I should go, right? If you see
Mhm.
everyone else going that way, typically humans will go, oh, well, that's the path, that's the way forward, and it
Mhm.
takes a lot of stubbornness and sheer willpower to go the opposite way, which I think you and I have both of those
Mhm.
things.
Yes.
Um, but I very much like you. I also had closed my door on the space industry because I was like, oh, well, I'm in aviation and I live in Asia and all these things. And I've only been in the space industry not even 2 years. And, I'm already spending time with people like yourself and Rachel Lyons and Cyan Proctor and Loretta Whitesides and just, all of these really incredible humans and a lot of very powerful women who
Mhm.
are helping to change that narrative and
Yeah.
to, it's at the end of the day, we won't have conversations about women in space. It'll just be humans in space.
Right.
Like that won't even be a factor of
Yes.
consideration or, a topic that we even need to give attention to. It's just
Mhm.
like, yeah, there's another human going to space. Cool. Great.
I think that the women I have met in the space industry are maybe the most strong-minded and strong-willed women I have ever met in my entire life. And I genuinely do think that speaks to something about how women are raised in when thinking about the space industry, that you have to go through so much demeaning shit. Like you have to go through so much so many trials and tribulations that are like, am I gonna make it? Like I'm not good enough because one, I'm not smart enough. I'm not a man. I'm there's just so many roadblocks for you to get through to kind of make it in the space industry and get your footing down in the space industry, that it really does take strong-willed and strong-minded women, and I'm proud of that. I'm proud to
Yeah.
call myself part of that those women, but I'm also proud that I'm choosing an industry that is breeding these kind of women,
Mm.
and so I'm really excited for the next generation of people, and to get more women into the industry because that's definitely something that needs to happen.
Yes, absolutely. And that's why I'm a big proponent of well, I say STEAM, not just STEM, because it's the arts also need to
Hmm.
be part of that conversation.
Oh yeah.
And I saw something the other day. It was really funny. Um, it was some really silly acronym, but it was including like politics and humanities and the arts and all of these things
Hmm.
that are actually essential for human civilization to
Hmm.
exist as we currently know it, right? We need all
Hmm.
of those things. If we only focus on certain aspects, then we completely strip the humanity of certain things. Or if we only focus on the arts and the humanities and the sociology side of things, but we don't have anything else, well then we limit our growth and our exploration ability, right? Because we don't have technology. So
Hmm.
it's like we need all of the things to have a well-rounded wheel that can actually turn
Right.
rather than something that's going to fall flat on one side because that's all we're developing.
I agree. I speak about this a lot. I think that a lot of people forget that the reason why so many people love living on Earth is not because of the opportunities or the resources, but it's because of the culture that we have. And it's because of our society and how we all play. I kind of think of society as this like uh this wheel with, the little or a Venn diagram or whatever that thing is called. You know what I'm
Yeah,
talking
yeah, the spokes of the wheel and then in the
about.
center. Yeah.
And there are little chunks, there are little pieces of that wheel that make up the entirety of civilization, that make up all aspects of the job industry, that make up all the aspects of society. And the reason why we're whole, the reason why we're a complete circle, we're a wheel and we turn is because we have all of those. And if you take out a part, the wheel just breaks. And
Hmm.
I think that a lot of people forget that when sending people to space, that when thinking about building a colonization, or when colonizing and when thinking about building a civilization on another planet or a moon or in space, that we need to build a culture that is surrounds everybody, that surrounds artists, that has people from all aspects of society, STEAM, arts and humanities, science, and everything, politics, all of it, um, to successfully be able to kind of disseminate our culture into another civilization. And I think it's really important that we just bring everybody from all aspects of society. So, yeah, I agree.
Yes. And one of the things that Frank and I actually spoke about is that we also need to bring our companions, our furry friends as
Yes.
well, because
Yeah.
what is humanity without that, right? And there's so many
Mhm.
elements that we forget about, and how many other creatures that we share this beautiful planet with. And
Mhm.
so, we see the different effects that being in solitude has on people. Like when we start to talk about deep space travel and the
Mhm.
exploration of what will happen to our mind, but also just that connection piece, right? And so, really cultivating that. It sounds like you've had a lot more intentionality in making sure that those components are present in your
Mhm.
life since that experience.
Yeah. Life maxing. That's what it's called.
Yeah, yeah. So, what's something that you're looking forward to? You're about to graduate in a few months.
Mhm.
What's something that's going to create another vacuum for you, right? There's going to be
Mhm.
this
God,
space
yeah.
where you used to have a lot of activity. So, what's next on the horizon for you?
I'm really glad that I had this experience, that I had this perspective change going to space as when I did, because I think I'd be really nervous. I'd be a lot more nervous than I am now. And I wouldn't think I would be able to handle going out on my own. It's really scary, thinking about mostly exciting, but it can be scary thinking about just kind of being thrown out into the wilderness of society and being like, okay, go figure it out. here's
Yeah.
here's what you need. Um, and I, what's next for me? I mean, listen, I definitely want to make it back to space. I obviously am part of the Brooke Owens Fellowship, so I have a lot of fun, exciting opportunities coming up for me. But one thing that I have made sure that I'm intentional about, which is actually reminding me of before I went to space. Before I went to space, I tried to set no expectations for myself for what going to space would look like for me,
Mm.
for what I would. Because I was preparing for PR and I was preparing for all these interviews where people were like, "Hey, what did going to space do for you?" And I found it really difficult to kind of write something because I really wanted to set no expectations. I really wanted to just let the experience be mine and let it come to me when it does, and let it be natural and homemade. And that's kind of how I envision my life going. I definitely have some goals, some milestones of the normal human milestones, getting a job and raising a family and going back to space. But I really just kind of want this life to kind of take me where it wants me, because
Mm.
if I have learned anything from going to space, it's that life is going to happen no matter what, and no matter what you do, no matter what you do, you can never control it. You can never control what happens to you. Well, you can never control what life does to you. You can
Yeah.
never predict it, and there's no use trying. So I have goals. I have a rough outline of where I want my life to go. Um, I definitely want to go back to grad school and probably get a master's degree, and then go definitely work in the space industry. But I think I'm gonna let the journey of life kind of dictate what that might look like, with which path it's going to bring me down. And I'm happy with that decision. And I'm good with that. I'm good just being unsure. I think that a lot of people are really
Mhm.
uncomfortable with unknown. Um,
Yes.
and so I'm deciding to embrace the unknown and kind of just take it day by day and say yes and just live. Just live my life.
You're speaking my language. This is exactly what I, aspire to be in as much as possible. It's not always easy, right? Sometimes we can get
Yeah.
wrapped up in the exams we've got coming up, the new thing that we're pursuing, an event that's coming up, a new relationship, like whatever it is. There's always things that make us ruminate, that make us project forward into the future and try to
Mhm.
plan and control every little thing.
Yes.
But what I'm hearing you say is that you're going to do your best to always come back to a place where you let life unfold and you get
Yes.
to discover what that
Mhm.
has in store for you with awe and wonder rather than being worried about what's going to happen or stressed that it's not going to go exactly the way you want it.
Mhm.
And that's a really beautiful place to be. It's actually our natural state. I mean, look at any child,
Yeah.
right? That's how we can be when we allow it. And so my one word for 2025 is allow.
Mm.
And it's been a really powerful word so far this year. Do you have a one word intention practice?
No, but I probably should. That'd be fun. I could do that.
Yeah. Well, okay. I'm just
Probably go
going to
with
offer the word should. Don't should all over yourself because that is very, very useful word. When it came about, actually, the origin of it means to owe. So, which is why we don't like it when someone tells us you
you
should do that
should.
because it's what they want us to do. Not necessarily what's best for us. And so it's really
Yeah.
interesting to dive into the etymology of words because language creates our reality.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, I would love to see what your word would be if you sit down and spend some time. Do you have one that pops into your mind
I
already?
think I think I think I'm gonna go with accept. I think I'm
Accept.
just gonna
Nice.
accept life as it is. I'm just gonna accept people for who they are. Um, or I guess let life happen. Let people do
Yeah.
what they want.
Equanimity. What I'm hearing is equanimity. Are
Sure.
you familiar with that word?
No.
Okay. So equanimity is something happens and it's okay, right? It is
Yeah.
what it is.
Mhm.
There's no charge one way or another. That's what it is. This moment,
Mhm.
it's like this.
Yes.
And so having equanimity towards the moment, the situation, the person, the thing is, I don't need to change anything about this moment, this experience, this person.
Mhm.
I accept them. I accept this for what it is. I accept myself for what I am.
Mhm.
It's really having this like peace and serenity with all things, even if it maybe doesn't go according to what you wanted or hoped or desired. And so
Mhm.
it's this concept of moving away from intense desire or extreme avoidance, because those are the two things that cause us the suffering. So
Right.
when we can accept, when we allow, then we can be in that state
Right.
more and more, which
Yeah.
is really, really powerful place to be. So I love it.
I'm just gonna protect my peace.
Yes, exactly.
And I think
PMP.
exactly. And I think a large part of that mindset I have, um, to just let things happen, like equanimity, is that I would have never guessed where I would be 4 years ago. If I were to meet myself 4 years ago, I would have never, ever imagined that any of this would happen to me, that I would ever have any of these opportunities. And
Mm,
I know that's how the rest of my life is going to go. And
yeah,
so I'm just, and that, plays a large part kind of in how I go about living life. I just kind of listen to myself. I think that's something I've learned within the past year, and something I've really worked on is following my intuition, is to trusting and listening to my body and really tapping into my body,
mm,
and because your body will really tell you what you need. It'll tell you
it
what you
sure
think.
will.
It'll tell you what's right, what's wrong for you. And I feel so much more confident with my decisions. I feel like my every more aspects of my life are right for me now that I'm listening to my intuition and I'm trusting myself. If something feels right for me, then I'm going to go and I'm going to do it. And hey, I might do it and it might not be right for me, but I'm not going to sit there and be like that was wrong because it felt right at
Mm,
the time. And if something is just like beeping at me like, "Hey, no, like this is just not good," then I'm going to remove myself from that situation. And since I've been doing that, my life has been serving me more. I feel like I've been more positive a person, and I feel definitely more in tune with myself.
that's great.
So, yeah.
Yes. Well, I'm going to definitely celebrate that for you and with you, because it is an extremely powerful thing to use your data inputs. Like, we have them for a reason, right? Our senses exist for a reason, and
Mm-hmm.
use them intentionally. And so a lot of people, especially in our field, tend to be scared of emotions and feelings.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yet it is simply data. And so I always love to recommend the app How We Feel. You can go to howwefeel.org and learn all about the science behind it. It's a center at Yale. They've been studying emotions and created this app between data scientists, engineers, and psychologists.
Mm-hmm.
So you get to start to name and understand your experience better. And there's all these awesome little videos. And
I'm gonna write this
the
down.
best part is you get all this data to look at the patterns. So, like, you can go back and see, hey, last month I checked in 60 times and 50 of those were new emotions. And I had, look how many different experiences I had, or 20 of them were the same. What is that one? Oh, tired? Oh, okay, that makes sense. So
Mhm.
even though I had an unpleasant experience, it was really just me being tired. Okay, well, now
Yeah.
I know what I can do for that. I can go meditate or take a nap or,
Mm-hmm.
shift something rather than just being in this kind of general malaise of things
Yeah.
don't feel great. So yes, it's really empowering to get back to that state, because so many people have learned how to ignore their senses, right? I mean, just think about how
Right.
many times you've not gone to the bathroom because you've been on a work call or you've been studying and you're cramming, and
Mm-hmm.
all the things that we have learned how to adjust ourselves to fit in the world,
Mm-hmm.
rather than using our natural born senses to help us make better sense, because of the social norms and culture that we're raised in. And we all have those different ways of interpreting what those senses are, and that's just story, right? But when we can get back to like what they're designed for, then we can start to understand how to, as you said earlier, life hack our way into better experiences and moments.
You mentioned that I agree. You mentioned that the space industry and the industry that we work in is kind of anti-emotion. I want to hear your take on that because I have my take on it.
Yes. So it's interesting. Depends on where you're working, of course. The culture of the organization is going to heavily influence this
Right.
perspective. Um, Typically speaking, the old space and the generations previous, as well as being male dominated, emotions weren't for the workplace. They weren't something that you needed to worry about. Like, why should I praise you? Why should I, care about what you're doing at home? Like, we're here to do a job. It's very task oriented, industrial revolution. And then you have to also be cognizant of you cannot let your emotions hijack you when you're in a mission critical state. If you're on a rocket or if you're in the cockpit, you need to be able to make rational decisions, follow a procedure, and be in command, right? So emotions don't have a place for that
Mhm.
because most people are not able to regulate their emotions effectively. And so therefore they get hijacked and they make irrational decisions. They do things that are opposite of safe. Now, when you have an emotionally intelligent person, someone with a high EQ, they understand there's a time and place for everything. Context, nuance, discernment. If things are burning down, it does not serve me to go into panic. It does not serve me to start crying. It serves me to go into action to,
Mhm.
make decisions, right? However, after that, it serves me to experience the emotions that are being processed because it helps you process.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of studies now that show if we do not process our emotions and our experiences, we will end up with autoimmune diseases, heart disease, severe health complications. And there's a really great book that I recommend for people called When the Body Says No, The Hidden Cost of Stress by Gabor Mate. And why this
Mhm.
book is so powerful is because he is a physician. That's where he started his career. So he
Mhm.
was very much in the body and rejected a lot of these more mental concepts for a long time until recently, because he's now seen the patterns emerge over 4 decades of being in this field and all the new
Mhm.
research and science that we have. So I see a shift. I do see a shift, particularly amongst the women and the younger generations, because as we have more emotional granularity and we have the ability to name and express about experiences, we have the ability to connect better, to motivate, and not only motivate, but have people be intrinsically motivated in the work they do. Anyone who wants to learn more, you can start to look up self determination theory. It's really
Mhm.
very fascinating work. Positive psychology shows us that even just studying emotions and understanding positive psychology and emotional granularity will make you a happier person. You will start to have better experiences in your life. So
Mhm.
I feel in the industry traditionally it was not celebrated. Funny
Mhm.
thing is anger and frustration are also emotions, but there were a lot of emotions that are maybe too touchy feely because the leader didn't know how to process it themselves or how to hold space and handle that for somebody else. They couldn't create psychological safety, so they just avoided it. So
Mhm.
in one sense, they didn't have those tools. I mean, 20 years ago, we were not having the conversations we're having now about mental health. It's okay to not be okay. Being able to express in certain ways, even the technology and tools that we have. And so every generation will have their thing, right? There's always going to be new things. And to your point, we cannot go back to the previous decision with information we have now and say, oh, that was wrong. You did the bad thing. Well, you didn't know then. You didn't have awareness of that tool. So
Right.
could you have done something better? Yes, but you didn't have awareness of it. You weren't capable of it yet. And
Mhm.
so bringing that compassion and understanding is so important as we analyze like the spaces that we operate and exist in, because
Right.
what can happen is a lot of people get on a high horse and they're like, oh, well, I'm intelligent emotionally, or I'm spiritual and I'm this and you're not, and therefore you're wrong. You need to come up here. No, it's just different. Everyone has different experiences that make them up who they are. But as we connect more and more, this is going to be, again, not a conversation we even need to have because it's just something we do.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's my take. What is your take?
Wow. But I think it's really interesting because something I should learn about is, organizations just aren't communication. Communication creates the organization as a whole. And so I agree with what you said, and I was going to touch on, because the leader, because the people within this organization aren't able to communicate about their feelings or accept their feelings, then the organization culture as a whole rejects emotional people. And I think it's so interesting because I think, especially for people who study space, they realize, well, I would hope most of them realize how incredibly unique humanity is.
Hmm.
I mean, people who study space know that out of the 100,000 light years, billion light years that are our Milky Way is, that we're the only planet that we have, that we know right now with sentient life, that we are just a little dot in this huge grand scheme of things. And I mean, no, we have detected nobody, and we are such interesting, unique species. And a big part of that, I'm a huge advocate for feeling strongly, feeling very intensely, feeling very passionately, because I think one of the greatest gifts of humanity is emotions. It's our
Yeah.
ability to not have a feasible or tangible like thing that you can hold on to. Emotions, you can't touch them, you can't, feel them physically. Um, but yet they're so rejected within the space community because what you said, it, kind of um, hinders mission success. And I just think it's really interesting
Yes
because,
and no. I'm gonna come back to that, but keep on your point. But let's come back to the hinder
yeah,
success.
um, I think that, like more about that, it has been previously seen, as you mentioned, as something that would make people, less able to think on their feet, and would cause people to panic when emergencies happen. And, I think about this quote from I think it was Alan Shepard, or maybe, yeah, I think it was Alan Shepard, who said that there was an interviewer who asked him why he almost fell asleep in the rocket one day, and I think he said that there's no use worrying about something twice, which
Mm.
I actually do think is good advice, and I do take that with me. But it also does say something about how astronauts prepare emotionally. Uh, but I just think that humanity is gifted with the most incredible, unique skill, which is to
Yeah.
feel things and to feel things complexly, and that I can go like across the universe and I can feel something to someone back on Earth. I just think that is a great gift, and I don't see the use in ignoring that.
Correct. And like we are sense making machines. We have physical sense, we have these like sensations that occur. So maybe like happy is not something you feel, but this like warm, like you're getting a hug, or like you're sitting, I describe it as like I'm sitting in the sun and it's warm and I
Hmm.
feel those rays beating down on me. So there's sensations that we experience. We ascribe our own story of what that means, if it feels good or if it feels bad, right? But the ignoring emotions is ignoring a very important component of humanity, of who we are. And it also actually makes you less safe. Because imagine that you ignored your emotions, so you're really good. You always, you do process, you do procedure, you're getting straight A's, you are in the top 0.1 percentile of performance. Now all of a sudden you're put under pressure like you've never imagined, and you have no outlet because you can't go to the bar, you can't go for that 10K run, you can't go call a friend.
Hmm.
You don't know how to regulate. And
Yeah.
now you break more spectacularly than anybody else. So it actually is a very unsafe thing. It's just a ticking time bomb waiting to explode.
Right.
And so what we need to be doing, and even people like talk about the Stoics all the time. The Stoics were not advocating no emotion. They were advocating equanimity, being able to handle the emotion. And so
Hmm.
that's what we need to be training people to do. It's not about, we're not asking you to sit around and hold hands and sing kumbaya all the time. What we're asking is that you are able to recognize the emotional state that you're in so that if you need to go regulate, you can, because that's going to
Hmm.
make you a more effective leader. It's also going to help you guide others through the same thing when it's time for them to go through that experience. And so, a lot of leaders are learning this now. And it's like, I call it like a reckoning or a reawakening. And these leaders who have been running engineering firms, who've been running, technology companies, who have ignored this for a large part of their life, it's now all unraveling and they're realizing, like, I need to focus on those things. That's how I get my health back. That's how I can actually enjoy what I'm doing. And the funny thing is I think people in space are all extremely emotional people because we're driven by this awe and wonder of something so spectacular. It would be insane to say that we're not, but what happens is we're conditioned to play it down. Don't be so
Yeah.
excitable, right? It's not that big of a deal. And then we kind of do it in secret or in pockets of like, oh, these people are safe, so I will express with them. So for me, the goal is if you show up authentically, like you very much do, that gives other
Mhm.
people permission to also, hey, I can be excited about this. Hey,
Mhm.
I can have an emotion. Like a lot of people, Emily, when she came down and she, cried and
Mhm.
somebody like yelled at her for that or was like, oh, that's not what astronauts are supposed to do. It's like you just went through one of the most intense things a human being could ever go through, and you think that they shouldn't have an emotion about it, that they shouldn't be excited, that they shouldn't
Mm.
like express something, right? Like it's it's something that requires safety, and most people, unfortunately, don't feel safe to express emotions because of culture, because of their experience. And so, really, the best thing that we can do as people and as good citizens and as leaders is to learn how to be emotionally resilient, how to regulate ourselves, and demonstrate that it's safe for other people. And that's actually what Gabor Mate says in his book. My number one takeaway from his book is the greatest gift you can give your children is emotional resilience.
Mm. Ooh. Yeah. Wow. Every time you finish speaking, I'm like, wow, yeah.
Mic
Nice.
drop. Car- Carson and I just solved all the issues.
I think that was so well said. I in my experience going to space, I was sobbing, like uncontrollably
That's
sobbing.
beautiful.
And I remember I looked around and no one else was crying, and I was like, "Wait, you guys, do I what's happening?" Because I I agree. I think, people will look at astronauts. I remember like listening to interviews of astronauts that come down from living in space for months at a time, and they're like, "Yeah, that was great." And I'm like, "What do you mean?"
That was great. That's like such a throwaway line. And also, just so like going to the gym is great. Going to Six
Like,
Flags is great. Having a piece of
like,
pie is great.
yeah,
Let's expand the emotional vocabulary.
that's exactly what I'm thinking. I'm like someone who's going to describe going to space as, yeah, it's just part of the job. That
Yeah,
was good.
someone's
Does
got to
not
do it.
deserve to go to space. If you're going to space and coming
I
back being
agree.
like, like White Lotus crying, then you do not like. We need to send people who are feeling all of it because that is where growth and like
The
change.
artists and the poets and the people who will capture, the people who will inspire us to want to go there and
Yes.
to, explore. I mean, that's a very natural human state, isn't it?
Yeah.
And again, it's like we just don't celebrate. So just like we need to celebrate for young women and anyone that it would, if they have a passion in space, to like let them know it's accessible. A lot of times there's information out there, just not accessible. And so
Hmm.
how do we make it more accessible? But the same thing, like nurture the artists and the creatives instead of trying to force them to fit into another box.
Yes.
Then that's another piece of this puzzle that we're talking about. But it all boils down to, yeah, being able to express that experience, because when we don't have words for something, we cope, and then we usually do it in maladaptive ways rather than
Hmm.
healthy ways.
I agree. I really want to send like a good singer, like a really creative singer. Like I don't even know. I need to come up with
I,
someone who
I,
can
I,
sing.
well, I actually know someone, and she's gonna love this because she wants to go to space. I don't even know if her husband does, but he is this excellent singer. Like I remember we went to watch him play in a venue. So he used to be in the band Corn, and I
Okay.
think he was the bassist or guitarist. Anyways, he's super cool, and he's got an amazing voice. So the theme of this event was something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue. So there were
Hmm.
two singers that would like pair up, and they would sing an old song of theirs and then a new song of theirs, and then borrowed. So this person would sing the other singer's song and vice versa, right?
Hmm.
So you'd get to hear the like same song sung by two different voices and two different styles, and it was
Hmm.
just spectacular.
How about?
And then the final one was something blue. So what he did was he asked questions of the audience and then used those answers to literally create, sing, and play a song right there on the spot. And I was like,
Now
what
that's talent.
just happened? Yeah. And so I was like, we should send him to space.
Please, I really want to I don't know, like we just need to send someone really good to go and like kind of encapsulate in a song what going to space feels like.
Yeah. Or
I
and sound. It doesn't even need to have be
Yes,
words, just sound, you know?
yes. Oh
Yeah.
god. Yeah.
All
Mm,
right. Well, this we're putting it out into the universe. Let's see what we can do. We can start pitching this to people. I think it's a
yes,
great concept.
me too.
Um, we do have to start to wind down,
Mhm.
unfortunately. I feel like we could talk for hours though.
We
This
could.
is this has been great. We'll definitely get you on the show again because we're going to
Yeah.
want to hear more about what you do next
Mm.
and where you go in this next pivot point that you're coming through. So you're like in the space between, which is the name of my new newsletter, but it's the space
Ooh.
between where you've been and where you're going.
Mm.
And so
Good.
hanging out in this space is a really liminal experience, and it's something that sometimes we try to rush, and so allowing yourself, accepting it right now, and being in a place of enjoyment will be
Mm.
really great. But I have three questions for you.
Okay.
The first one is, what is your superpower?
Okay. You might laugh. Actually, no, you won't laugh. I think okay, I have ADHD and I genuinely think that I would not be the person I am today without my superpower. I mean, without my ADHD. There you go.
It's a superpower. I know many people, my partner, my business partner, a lot of people in my world who are also extremely creative and very successful have it, and it's just that the brain works differently. And we
Yes.
and you know what? About 40% of the population has it. It is just a part of being human. And I heard someone explain this to me actually at an Eclipse event. I have not fact checked this. So, for anyone who is listening, if you want to go and do the deep research and come back to me, I would love this. But she was talking about how she had been introduced to this concept that essentially there are the people who are the deep focus, deeply skilled people, and we need those people to run society, to make things happen, right? You can't just like come up with an idea, spark, and then never see it to fruition. So
Right.
we need those kind of that stability, but we also need the people who are constantly like scanning the environment for threats and assessing and making quick connections and saying, hey, we're going to go here, we're going to go there. Why? But that's not, no, it's okay, trust me, follow me, we're going to go there. So we need the two different types of people in order for things to occur. And so she was explaining that there was this theory presented about, how it used to be back before we had, the technology we had today.
Hmm.
And I thought that made a lot of sense, because, and it's not so black and white. It's not like you have ADHD or you don't, right? It's like you can have on a spectrum some elements of those things.
Right.
And maybe not all the time, maybe in certain contexts, maybe at a certain age. Like there's a lot there. But the thing is we're constantly changing. But I absolutely think it's a superpower. So I'm so glad that you celebrate that and that you brought it up.
No, I do. I think it makes me so much more versatile as a person. And yes, I do get easily distracted, but at a great cost. I feel like I'm so observant. I notice like more things about the world. And I'm also I just can put myself in multiple different aspects of society. Like I I'm just I can look everywhere. I can do, science and math and all of this, and I can do arts and humanities. I can be creative. I definitely feel like it unlocks a more creative side of me, and I can think outside the box. And I think that growing up, I was, kind of told, oh, you have ADHD, like you're not as smart as everyone else. I feel like I'm smarter because I have ADHD. Like,
And smart is subjective, right? Like smart
exactly.
in what? Are you smart in math? Are you smart in science? Are you smart in people? I
Hmm.
know people who are extremely intelligent in mathematics and equations and science, and you put them in a social setting and they are awkward AF. It's
Yes.
like, I'm feeling uncomfortable for you right now,
Mhm.
And so what is smart? Like that's a definition.
Right.
And book smart, is that really smart? Because then things don't actually practically apply to the real world.
Mm.
So, we get to redefine what that means. So yes,
Hmm.
push back on that. I support you.
So yeah, that's
Tell me
my.
who these people are. I'm gonna go talk to them. No, I'm just joking. I'm not joking, but I'm joking. All right. Okay, so that's definitely a superpower. Second question is, who's on your personal board of directors? Now, this question, what I mean by this is like, who are the people that you will go to if you're feeling stuck? Maybe you want an outside perspective,
Mm.
and it doesn't have to even be someone that you would actually talk to. So it could be someone who's fictional, someone that is from the past, maybe someone that has like a characteristics and attributes that you really value, and so you're putting things through the lens of this individual to help you come up with different perspectives and options for yourself. Or they could be people that you talk to regularly in your life. So who's on your personal board of directors when you're in those sticky moments?
Oh, I love this question. I love this question. Okay. I think the first one that came to my mind was my late great aunt. She was the kindest person I've ever met, and she's just so enthusiastic and so bubbly and so outgoing. And I swear to God, I never heard a single bad word, like bad thing about someone come out of her mouth. And I think that there are definitely times where I get a little, I'm like, ugh, I hate everything. And I definitely think that that is someone I would go to kind of calm me down in times of need. And I think that she would be really great and she would really serve well on my board of directors. I think the next person, I'm gonna laugh saying this. I think the second person that came to my mind was Katniss Everdeen.
Yes, that's awesome.
From the Hunger Games because she is such a badass. And she's such a strong-willed, like, independent woman who like knows what's right for her and what's right for her society and is never going to give up because of the mold that people put her in. And so I
Mhm.
definitely think that would be a great role model and a great person to refer to back on my board of directors.
I love that.
I would say
That's
my mom because my mom, I swear to God, is like psychic or something. She has been right about, like, every person that has ever come into my life and, like, a lot of things that happen with my life. And she's also a great role model because she's very strong-willed, she's very independent. She's kinda taught me to be, kind of a strong woman, and so I definitely think that she would be great. My best friend Katie, she would be a great person to just kind of serve as kind of comforting,
Mm.
to always kind of be there to kind of bring me back to my roots. Because sometimes I get lifted off the ground, my branches kind of pull me up, and I need someone to kind of ground me, put my roots back in the soil, and kind of remind me that I'm, a 22-year-old girl, and I don't have the entire weight of the world on my shoulders, that I can just be who I am today, and that's enough, and I can have fun. And
Yeah.
so I think that she would be great. Um, and oh God, there's definitely one more. Um, hmm. I think, I think that's good for now. I think I'm good with that.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, it's a living dynamic thing, so it's a fun concept to play with and see like what those changes are, and you might find that
Mhm.
there's different people for different situations, but
Exactly.
I think that's a pretty good list. Yeah,
Yeah. I like that they're all girls.
that sounds like a rad group of people to be checking in with.
Right? Oh,
Yeah.
maybe Sally Ride, definitely. Actually, I'm
Yes.
putting her on there for obvious reasons.
Yeah, clearly. And if you don't know who she is, you need to go do a Google or ChatGPT search right this second.
Right now.
Push pause and go do that and then come back.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay. My final question, well, actually, I have a surprise bonus question for you, but the final question that I ask all my guests is, imagine there is an alien intelligence of some kind that has come to Earth, and you are the first human that they get to meet and interact with.
Oh, wow.
So what do they learn about humanity as a result of meeting you?
Okay, well, ex I'm gonna dissect this by imagining what the aliens are like first. I feel like the aliens would be very, like, they would have kind of one process of thought. They would think about things, very bluntly and with sharp lines and, I wouldn't really consider them to be emotional species. So I think would bring them I would bring them to who? Hmm. Oh God, I gotta get a good answer. Oh my gosh. Okay. I would bring them to a fair, a carnival, because I think that you can learn a lot about society from that, and I think that a carnival is one of the cutest aspects of our society. Now, this is why. There are so many different types of people that go to the carnival from all different aspects of life, from every different class, race, all of it. And I also think that the carnival is a time where humanity's at its purest. It's just humans having fun on
Mm.
machines. And I think that is kind of kind of everything about life. I mean, I think that that's kind of what we do at our core every day is just have fun with machines. Um, and I also think that you can learn a lot about different types of people. I mean, there are high schoolers there, so you're definitely going to get some like bickering and like drama. And then there's definitely like going to be some drunk college kids there, so you're going to learn kind of about like the delinquents. And there's going to be like parents and kids, so you can learn about family dynamics and communication styles. Um, and also kind of what makes humans tick. Food. I mean, there's kind of every type of food at the carnival. So there you go. And laughing, and I think it would be a good place.
I
Good
love
answer.
it.
I hope that's a good
Yeah. That's a
answer.
great answer. I've never heard that one before, and it is a great way to go and observe and learn about the different aspects and
hmm
oddities and quirks that humans will express in one of our more, delightful states. And like we're going there for leisure, but as you said, you get to observe so many different aspects of humanity. So
hmm
it would be really, I'm sure, eye opening for them. And they might
hmm
fit right in because, the freaks are at the carnivals too and the weirdos like
Exactly.
me. So, that they're going to be like, "Oh, hey, there's someone that's like us."
Or if they're coming down with like bad intent, I think I'd bring them to Times Square.
Yeah, and just overwhelm them.
They'd be like, "I'm out." Like
Like,
too much.
"Whoa, way too much sound and
Like,
what are you even doing? This is like, like, get me
yeah,
out of here." Like,
yeah,
"Okay, we
yeah.
solved it."
Yes,
All
yes.
right, when the UAP stuff drops, like you guys know where to find us. We got you. We're gonna help with this
We're
communication.
gonna help with it.
That's why I love this question because it's so much fun, right? And
Yeah.
it ends everything on a really fun note. But on another fun note, especially because I always talk about, flipping your perspective and seeing things from a new angle. I'm really curious if gravity were turned off for an hour on Earth, what would be the
Ooh.
first thing that you would do?
Oh, I'd totally go fly around. Are you kidding? Are you kidding? I would go and okay, I actually do think about this quite often, what it would be like to be a bird. I think being a bird would be so fun. I definitely do think that it would be kind of tiring to always have to like flap your wings to get to one place from another, but I would go and look at everything from a bird's eye point of view. Totally. I think, oh God, that or I would go on my ceiling. I'm pretty short, so maybe I'd go look at things I can't see.
Yeah, I know. I got on my friend's shoulders at a concert recently, and I haven't done that for like 20 years. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is like, what a different perspective. And I was like, this is what tall people see. This is
Oh my
crazy.
God. Or you know what I would do? I'd go to like the ocean. Like I'd go to like some large body of water and like fly through water because it would be
Yeah,
floating.
because all the water would be floating, right?
Wait, could
Everything would, gravity's off for everything, not just the humans, right? So,
okay, but are buildings still like stuck to the ground?
well, I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
because like they're cemented in, right? So maybe some buildings though, like a tent, wouldn't be because if what's okay, that's like we're going to get into atmospheric pressure and all sorts of other things. That's like way
Yeah.
more science
Yeah.
related. We need the magic school bus to
Yeah.
come and like explain this for people. But yeah, it's just a fun thing. I would
Yeah.
probably be the same, just like
I
going
just
around. When you
fly
said go
around.
on the ceiling, do you want to know what popped in my head?
What?
The episode of I think it's Homer Simpson when he's like spider pig, and he's got like the pig on the ceiling that he's just like
Oh, yeah.
moving. It just popped in my head.
Or
So
I'd go and sit on top of a tree, like a very large tree. I
yeah,
think I'd do
we'd
that.
have to hold on to the tree.
Yeah. Or
You'd
I'd
be
put
holding
like
hands with the tree.
yeah,
That would be cool.
exactly. Oh,
They'd
these are
probably be like, oh,
good.
human.
Next time I come, I'm gonna think about this and I'm gonna have like the perfect answer. Not
Okay.
like perfect for me, like
Yeah.
authentic
Yeah.
perfect answer.
Awesome. All right. Well, Carson, this has been such a pleasure. I've had so much fun. Thank you for being on the show. Thank you for being my first astronaut in the lounge.
Thank you.
It's been so much fun. Now, if people would like to learn more about who you are, what you're doing, what you're up to, what's the best place for them to get in contact if they would?
Probably my LinkedIn.
Okay.
LinkedIn is just if you look on my name, Carson Kitchen on LinkedIn, you
Yeah.
go there. Or Orbital is a great place to go and look. It's www.orbital, that's ORBITELLE.org. Yeah, and those two good. And if you're a student at UNC, join the Carolina Astronomy Association because we have really fun stuff.
Amazing.
We do really great stuff.
If I was there, I would definitely join. And all of
Very
the
cool.
links will be in the show notes for those that are wanting to connect with Carson. If you
Mhm.
have any questions, please do send us a message. We'll make sure we get back to you. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this episode with your
Mhm.
friends. Thank you, Carson. It's been so much fun.
Thanks.
Awesome.
That was great.
That was so much fun. I had a
I
lot of fun.